Leading on from my second video where I discussed the negatives of early specialisation, in this video I will talk about the relative age effect in youth athletes and the implications it has on athlete selection and future development. So what is the relative age effect? Mann 2017 summed relative age effect up by saying it is the common practice of placing children into age groups for sport which may acutely benefit those who are more developed physically, emotionally and cognitively. This theory originates from a competitive ice hockey environment and focuses on investigating and measuring the RAA through the use of the four-quarter model. In England, the model is supplied by Cobley 2017 and is Quartile 1, athletes born September to November, Quartile 2, athletes born December through to February, Quartile 3, athletes born March to May, and Quartile 4, athletes who are born June to August. However, it is important to state that although these are always segregated into 4 quarters worldwide, these months may vary based on the country, their sport, and academic selection years. Advantages and disadvantages of RAE is that each quartile holds different advantages and disadvantages for their performers. For example, the performance advantages that are gained in participants who are born in the first quarter of their birth years, i.e. September through to November, was discussed in a recent study by Mann 2017, who states physical maturity influences many characteristics relevant to sporting performance, including stature, mass, aerobic power, strength and running speed. He also stressed that the prevalence of these factors were especially prevalent in contact sports, such as football, rugby and so on. He stated that these may be more advantageous in sports which involve physical contact. The effect of RE on these, on the opposite end of the scale, have been shown to have almost the exact opposite disadvantages to the participants compared to their older year mates. For example, Mann 2017 studied a Scottish Premiership academy and concluded that players were being released for reasons such as sprint speeds and vertical jump heights. This basically creates an unwinnable environment for those who are in some cases one whole year behind in terms of physical development. Where the problems, in my opinion, arise is that research conducted on fully developed athletes in UK Rugby League by Cobley shows that the physical advantages generally even out at the age of 17, and can then even reverse and flip, as the athletes who were more previously physically dominant are caught up and overtaken by those who are born in the last quarter of the year. After hearing these facts, I'd like you to pause the video and ask yourself, why do we as coaches still take the instant results of first quartile age advantages as the be-all and end-all in sport talent identification? This process has without doubt led to many athletes missing opportunities to be nurtured into world-class athletes by releasing them from their academies/systems during vital learning periods, e.g. the ages of 11 through to 16. This then hinders the athletes for life, as poor training during these ages cannot be fully corrected. Research from Kirk 2005 states that by the time children are in Key Stage 3, it is too late to begin to provide young people with the kinds of quality, deliberate play experiences that they require in their early years of sport participation. A research project conducted by Simmons 2001 into the Football Association National School provides evidence that birthdays were divided into 3 periods of the year: January to April, May to August, and September to December. Data was compared over a 5-year period and concluded there is indeed a bias towards selecting older children. Furthermore, analysis of separate data revealed a shift of bias when comparing 2 different start dates, namely September and January. Findings show that the oldest children from the January start date, born September to December, are selected significantly more often than the youngest children from the September start date, born May to August. Interestingly, even when the influence of body mass was reduced, the selection bias towards the older players remained. The competitive advantage bestowed to the relatively older athlete in their age band is the result of the older athlete being more physically and emotionally mature. These more mature players will likely go on to be exposed to better coaching, better facilities, better competition in their respective sport, which will then further contribute to their success, says Joyner 2020. An example I have found within my sport of football is semi-pro leagues. These leagues are often dominated with players who are ex-academy players. Many of these players were born in the first quartile of their birth years, and therefore were more physically and mentally developed, which then exposed them to academies and better coaching, which contributed to them being able to play in semi-professional leagues. However, when the rest of their academy participants from the other quartiles caught up in terms of maturation, they overtook them, and therefore led to the release of these players. So what is an alternative to RA selection? Biobanding is one, and AAC Bournemouth leads the way with a new form of grouping which has been coined as biobanding. This is a method of identifying players and grouping them based on their maturation status, instead of chronological age groups. Biobanding aims to eliminate the biological maturational difference that appear in children of the same ages. For example, this allows a player who may be 15 and a late developer to play with children aged 12 to 13-year-old who developed earlier in an attempt to create a more level biological playing field. The advantages of this are huge, as it allows players who used to rely on their physical advantages to have to now use their technical and tactical skills instead, and vice versa for the late developers, allowing them to play in an environment where they are not overlooked due to them not having been physically developed yet. In my opinion, biobanding can be best used not as a complete alternative to chronological selection, but as a hybrid method which should be used where necessary to assess players' needs. I would implement biobanding assessments for all academy players, and if it can be deemed as useful to a player's development, then it should be used.